Alright folks, since I'm out today, I am going to have you guys taking your notes using this screencast video and two other videos later on to complete your notes. So once you have your notes, go ahead and write down your essential question, which is how is globalization an advantage and a disadvantage? Remember that this is something that we're going to be talking about all this month, and today we're going to be specifically looking at globalization, so that partnership, that interaction that different countries have. We're going to be comparing two things. There's something called NATO and something else called the UN. Both of those things serve similar functions, and we're just going to try to figure out what are some similarities and differences. So for your learning target, write down I can compare and contrast NATO and the UN. Now additionally, on your notes, let's go ahead and start with NATO. Can you guys title the very first part of it North America or North Atlantic Treaty Organization? That's what NATO stands for. You'll notice that blue image in the front of this video. This is actually the flag of NATO. All those countries that you guys see here, those other flags, if we take a look here, surrounding this compass rose, this is the NATO flag. And these are the different countries that are members of NATO. So before we start, let's go ahead and get a little bit of background information. Oops. Okay. Remember that during the Cold War, the Soviet Union, which is what's in this reddish pink here, they were communists, and everything that you guys see in the green over here, they were capitalists. And along with that was the United States. They were partnered up with. And all throughout dividing these up would have been something called the Iron Curtain. The USSR, the Soviet Union, now in order to just maintain stability, be able to trade, be able to travel, and even get their military out and about, they need access to the water. So if you take a look up here, it looks like they could get there, but they can't because that's mostly ice. They're not going to be able to get through there. Soviet access to water might be along in here, but once again, they have to go through some pretty hostile territory of these Western capitalist countries. Now their other option would be to go through the Black Sea, go between Turkey and Greece, out through the Mediterranean. Okay. Whatever their options are, they are going to be surrounded by hostile territory. Now, to begin with, we have to understand that after World War II, you don't need to write this part down. The United States, we were really worried about communism. And we were capitalists, and we wanted every other country to become capitalist. President Truman at the time came up with something called the Truman Doctrine. So in 1947, this was a gesture of friendship. Basically, he said that we should give money to Greece and Turkey. Okay, we were going to give them $400 million. Okay, both Greece and Turkey were hurting from World War II, and they needed money to rebuild. And by giving them money, we were offering our friendship. We were going to help them rebuild with the hopes that they would help us out. Okay? They would be partners with us. And in doing so, they're going to prevent the USSR access to the ocean. Okay? Remember this? So Greece and Turkey are going to join up with us, and they're not going to become communists. But keep in mind, other countries are hurting too. France is hurting. Italy's hurting. Germany's hurting. Okay. And so what are we going to do about them? Okay. Same year, 1947, we came up with something else called the Marshall Plan. The United States Congress is going to give $13 billion this time to all those Western European countries. Okay. We're hoping that this would help prevent them from becoming communists. Okay. Once again, another gesture of friendship. And so here's what the map ends up looking like. Everything in green here basically are who we gave money to, and they joined up with us. And we surrounded the Soviet Union and prevented them from having easy access to the oceans, okay, which is going to hurt their economy, and it's going to hurt their national defense. Yeah. All right, here's where I do want you guys starting to take notes. So the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. For your notes for the who and the when, you can go ahead and write down what's in yellow here, that it started in 1949. And keep in mind, this was a military alliance. Okay. It started out with just 12 countries, though it has expanded beyond that. And these were 12 countries that included North America, which would have been Canada and the United States, as well as those Western European countries. What was the purpose of it? The why? The original purpose back in 1949 was to protect its members from possible attack of the Soviet Union. This was called containment. Remember how we trapped them in? We did not want the Soviet Union to have the ability to attack any of those countries. Okay. This was an alliance of countries that had shared values. Basically, those values would have been, they were all democracies, and they all had to be capitalists. And this was actually pretty well thought out, and it did work out. Because spoilers, for 70 years, and it's been 70 years since, this has been considered one of the most important alliances that the United States has made. Okay. For the what? There's a part of the NATO treaty called Article 5, so make sure that you write that down, Article 5. And this is a direct quote from it. Please copy down this quote. It says, the parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all. Basically, what that's saying is that if any of those countries that you saw in green gets attacked, then all the other countries are going to join in and fight back. It worked. No NATO countries have ever been attacked by the Soviet Union, okay, or anyone else. If they are attacked, they are going to feel the full brunt of this. The only time any other of those NATO countries has ever been attacked was the United States, and that was on September 11th, 2001. And so what do you think happened? Once we were attacked, all of our NATO allies, once again, that's all of these countries, they all joined in the fight. They all helped us in attacking Al-Qaeda and the Taliban in the country of Afghanistan. Okay. So, just going back, Article 5 has basically prevented World War III. And it's been helping out so far for 70 years now. Here's a map of who's in NATO. Every country that you see in blue here. That's current. Yeah. This was the original ones, but then we've added on since. Just a list of who's there. You don't have to write this down, but these are the original 12. Yeah. These ones slowly joined over time. So 1952, we had Greece and Turkey finally join. Once Germany, West Germany, became a democracy, they joined in 1954. Spain eventually joins after they got rid of their fascist dictator in 1982. 1955, all of these countries start joining up as well with something called the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact is the opposite of NATO. This was the Soviet Union's group. They decided, hey, if NATO's going to form, they're going to form their own. And these are all going to be communist countries. Warsaw Pact no longer exists. It's not a thing anymore because in 1990 the USSR fell. Cold War is over. Okay, so these guys have all gone away, and many of them actually joined up with NATO. Just a map of the Warsaw Pact. So there's a question I want you guys to think about for later on. If NATO was originally formed as a defense against the USSR, and the USSR no longer exists, do we still need NATO? This is a question that a lot of people debate. Our current president, Donald Trump, has made mention a couple times in the past, though he's kind of gone back and forth, saying that we might not need NATO anymore. I'm going to skip these parts. Let's get to this. Here's something I'd like you guys to write down. NATO is a military defense group, and so with that, they have to spend money. Now, one of the things that we require from our allies is that they spend a certain portion of their economy, their economic growth, their GDP, on military defense. In total, about $900 billion is spent on NATO every year. The different countries contribute certain amounts. You'll notice that the United States, we contribute the most. We contribute 22%, okay, to NATO's budget. Germany contributes about 15, France 11, UK, and you'll notice our other allies, they don't contribute as much. And that's usually because they're poorer countries, they can't afford it. But that's okay for the most part, or has been. We just require that they spend 2%. Can you please write down on your notes that all NATO countries are required to spend 2% of their GDP. So their total wealth, 2% has to be spent on military. You'll notice on this legend that any country that spends more than 2% or meets that is in green. Not all of them are. Okay? We see the United Kingdom, Estonia, Poland, Greece are, but the other ones aren't really meeting their goal. They're spending less than 2%. And that's been a point of contention. Every president in the last 70 years has kind of brought up the fact that these guys need to step it up. Donald Trump has basically even said that maybe if these guys don't step it up, if they get attacked, we might not join in with them, violating Article 5. The next part of your notes, I want you guys to watch this video. So I've linked it below. This one's about the UN. And so you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to find out when, who, and what the UN is. You're going to jot down those basic facts. I'd like you guys to compare NATO to the UN after you've done that. What are some differences that the two have? What are some similarities? And then you're going to determine if we still need NATO. You might want to watch this video, which I will also link, okay, to decide, do we still need NATO? And that's what I want you guys to write down for your summary. What do you think? Is NATO something that's still necessary?